I want to talk about the dark side of self-improvement. There is a pitfall, and it's a pitfall that I have fallen into, I know so many people fall into. When people decide that they're going to go change their life or do something to dramatically improve themselves, they don't just do that if their life is already going pretty well, right? Like most people who get into improvement do so because they want to get better at something. And usually, let's be real, that's gonna come from some kind of experience they had with negative impact, right? Like they got dumped in a relationship that they really cared about, or they feel like, they're not as good at something as they want, or they can't make money, or they're behind other people in this scenario and they seem to not be able to get ahead. They're having a tough time moving forward in their own lives, and that's why they turn to stuff like self-help and improvement and kind of analyzing like, what's wrong with me? You don't get into that framework if you're loving everything in your life, right? You just don't. People who are 100% okay with everything going on in their life, they're not gonna be like, let's go read a book on how to do better. No, they're just out there living it. If you are the kind of person who feels like you're a little bit of an outsider and everybody else seems to get it and you don't 100% click and you just want to know how to get back on track with what seems to be so normal for everybody else, self-improvement can turn into something that is a tool of procrastination. It's kind of this active procrastination. We're doing something so we feel good. We feel like we're making progress, but really, are we? Look at it this way, right? Let's say you were super skinny in high school and people made fun of you, so you decided that, you want to go to the gym, you want to bulk up, you want to work out, right? At the face value, that is a form of improvement, right? Like that's bettering yourself. And it's healthy too, like working out, doing something that's good for your body, it lowers anxiety, it lowers stress, and it makes you look better. It's all completely positive. But if your motivation in that action was, well, I don't want to face that feeling of like being an outcast. I don't want to feel that embarrassment of these people not accepting me. I want to prove them wrong, right? I want to make myself the best self I can be. In a way, that's good, but it ignores the bigger problem. And it's self-improvement, I think we can split into two different concepts of self. There's little s self and there's big S self. And lowercase s self is the kind of self-improvement that motivation comes from some kind of wound in your past, right? So like if you get into being a pickup artist player type dude, it probably comes from the fact that somebody ripped your heart out once and you want that to never happen again, right? Or you work out a lot because you want to put on that physicality because you don't want to get made fun of again. You want to fit in with whatever group. At its core, those are steps of avoidance. It's acknowledging that there is this internal feeling that I don't want to feel this anymore. So I'm going to do something to make sure that I never have to feel this again. And that doesn't work very well. It's a way to ignore the bigger issue, right? It's a way for us to treat a symptom instead of treating our underlying issue. Because obviously, we can't guarantee that we'll never feel rejection again, or we can't guarantee that we will never feel like an outsider again. That is an element of improving the egoic self, the small self that wants to stay the same and never face any criticism, right? And the more we shine that up and make it polished and look pretty, we're really just putting on a face. We want to present ourselves to the world in a way to make sure that the world does not hurt us internally. There's a certain element of that works and is good to know and understand. It does nothing to address our internal weakness or our internal issues or pain that are the root cause of those symptoms. So the dark side of self-improvement is that it can become like this series of band-aids we're stacking on top of each other to cover up this feeling that we don't want anybody to brush up against, right? So we work out and we get super bulky because we are insecure internally and we're afraid of somebody critiquing our appearance because that happened once as a kid and it really hurt us. So we say, you know what? I'm gonna work out so nobody ever triggers that feeling again. We build up this wall around our triggers, and in the meantime, we feel like we're making progress. That's the procrastination part, right? We read all these books, we learn all this information, we're learning. Improving that small self, that lowercase s self, is to a degree helpful, but if we're doing it for the wrong reasons, it's just holding us off from actually improving, and it's making us feel like we're doing something where we're really not making very much progress. It's like the people who go out and try to make all the money they possibly can in order to feel happy because they've learned that that money leads to acceptance or validation or whatever. They can have the fanciest stuff in the world, right? And you see these people constantly. We see celebrities who are having absolute meltdowns. They're alcoholics, they're drug addicts, they're having all kinds of affairs. They are not happy people. Some of them are, but a lot of them aren't. And it's like, why not? Because they are chasing the improvement of that small s self. They are trying to cover up their internal insecurities by improving this exterior shell that has very little to do with their internal self. So what do we actually do? How do we actually make a difference? Well, what we have to do is we have to look at that facade we're building around our triggers, right? We're saying, I never want to feel afraid again. I never want to feel inferior again. I never want to feel insecure again. So I'm going to do all these things to improve myself so I never have to feel this way again. That's absolutely bullshit. It just doesn't work. What we need to do is analyze, why do we feel this way? What is it about us that wants that approval? What is it about us that thinks we'll be okay if we have these nicer things? Or if I look this way and this person treats me a specific way, then I get to feel like I'm okay. We need to accept the big S self, the concept of your higher self from a more spiritual concept, I guess. The idea that the more we are able to let go of our attachment to what all these other people think of us, the more we're able to reduce the importance of the approval and the validation and the chasing of the money. We all know the stories of people who have chased these things thinking, oh, they're important, that'll make me happy, that'll make me happy. And it's like the carrot on the end of a stick, right? The more you improve, the better you get. The more money you earn, the more you work out, the more shredded you get up. Like the biggest bodybuilders in the world, some of them are the most insecure people. They're trying to improve to the point where they are immune to criticism. But what we really need to do is explore those triggers and say, you know what? This has to do with me. It is not a reflection of what those people think. That doesn't even matter. It's, what do I think? Why am I needing their approval on this deep level? Like, that is what you need to dive into. That's what we need to actually improve. And we can only do that by engaging in the situation. I know personally, fear is one of the things that holds me back most. I don't really know why, but that is like 100% what holds me back most in life. And I have read so many books in the last year about stuff from communication to how to start your own business to just improving your own sense of well-being and like working on yourself. And some of that information is very helpful, but some of it, after a certain point, becomes fuel for procrastination. Instead of putting all these patches, these band-aids on it, instead of studying all these books about how to deal with your fear or how to do this and how to do this, what I'm actually doing is trying to make sure that I never feel fear again, to build up a wall to protect that vulnerable inner self that I don't want to get hurt. Actual improvement is acknowledging, you know what? I am afraid. And doing the thing anyway. Acknowledging that, you know what? This is challenging to me. I'm gonna go try and accept that I might fail, accept that it might be scary, and accepting that you might get hurt. Building the wall to never get hurt is a form of trying to improve yourself to the point where you never have to feel the things that have triggered you in the past, right? That is not a good way to use your time. What we need to do, what real improvement is going inward and looking at those triggers and exploring them and saying, you know what, where does this come from? Is this really something I want to associate with myself? And letting go periodically, I do have a video on that, check that out, but letting go of those deeper emotional triggers, releasing yourself from these invisible undercurrents that are pulling the strings that you are compensating for by putting up this shield around your fragile lowercase s self so that you don't ever get hurt. What we really need to do is explore, why we get hurt in the first place. When we're focused on that small s self-improvement, we say, you know what, I just need to learn a little bit more, then I'll be okay. I just need to work out a little bit more. I just need to make a little bit more money, then I'll feel okay. I just need a little bit more approval, then I'll feel okay. That is trying to improve the egoic self, that small s self, and it is a bottomless pit that is only going to waste our time and our energy. And the more we spend our limited time and energy stoking up this small self, we cheat ourselves because we think it's working, right? We feel like we're progressing, and then all of a sudden something will take the legs out from under you. You'll say, well, I thought that wouldn't happen anymore. I thought that by putting all this time and energy in, I would be okay. I would feel all right. I wouldn't feel that rejection when somebody doesn't like me. When you actually need to let go of that attachment to whether they care or not. Your own sense of self-worth does not have to be determined by the outcome of this one encounter, right? Instead of consistently trying to improve our appearance and make everything flawless and perfect, we need to just start and learn as we go, because the energy we spend making that first thing look so good, to never feel that pain. We want to put on the best face possible. We want to make sure that our resume is bulletproof so we get the first job we apply to. We want to make sure that we are as perfect as can be so that the first person we ask out says yes. We want to make sure that, we look as good as possible so that nobody will ever question our appearance or make us feel less than we want to. But in actuality, what we need to do is accept the nature of reality, that some of these things are just gonna happen. And it's not actually personal. They don't really mean anything about us if 1 out of the 7 billion people on Earth rejects you. They could just be having a bad day. But what we tend to do, especially when we're working on that small s self-improvement, we take that stuff personally. We think everything that's about me. What did I do wrong? What can I make sure that I don't do wrong next time? And we go back to the drawing board and we say, all right, I need to build this wall around me. I need to make it even stronger than it was last time. And that doesn't really help, does it? It doesn't really do very much. So what we actually need to do is let go of our attachment to results. Let go of our attachment to, is this specific encounter going to make or break me? No, there's absolutely a time and place for reading and learning and meditate. Like, all of that stuff is great. But if you do not actually apply it, right? If you stay in this theoretical world where you're building the ideal version of yourself in your own head instead of in reality, it doesn't actually contribute very much. Like, you can learn, you can get a little bit more confident, but at some point, it's like reading a book on how to swim. You might understand some of it, it might be helpful, but if you do it for years and years instead of just jumping into the pool, it's never gonna make a difference. And if you jump into the pool once and you can't swim and you say, oh my gosh, I need to go back to the book. You get out and you go back and you read the whole book again, or you read another book. That also doesn't really help, because what you need to do is swim. What we need to do is embrace the fact that no matter how much we work on improving ourselves, we will feel those pains and discomforts. We will feel that rejection. We'll feel that fear, and we just have to fucking do the thing anyway. So that is the dark side, that we can get stuck in this loop of procrastination and improvement where we think we're learning, we think we're growing, we think, you know what, just one more book and I'm gonna crack the code, just one more rep and I'll have that body that nobody will ever critique, and then I can start, then I can get out there into the world and do my thing. And it's just a lie. There is absolutely value to all of those things, but it must be tempered with action. We have to actually try and accept that fear of rejection, accept that pain is gonna happen no matter what. There's no way to immunize ourselves to it. It's just gonna happen. Let those fears go, because those are the things that are actually running us. Those underlying emotional patterns are actually what causes those things to hurt. That's why we fear rejection, is because we have a deep imprint that says rejection equals death from when we were a child. When we are afraid of confrontation, it's because we need to have everybody like us. So instead of learning how to become the kind of person who never gets into any confrontation, that is helpful, right? Like, it's good to know that kind of stuff. But what we actually need to do is learn how to accept occasionally being in a confrontation and being okay with ourselves, not feeling like we're gonna go off the deep end because somebody got mad at us. We need to have that balanced perception based on big S self-improvement, wherein we acknowledge that we are being run by these emotional patterns, most of which go back to our childhood. We do talk about that in the letting go video I mentioned earlier. That is real improvement. And the small s improvement is great too. Like, don't get me wrong, that is amazing. And it is a cornerstone of like having a healthy life, is consistently working on improving yourself, right? But we need to improve ourselves for the right reasons, not because we are afraid of rejection or fear or not being good enough. Those are all core reasons why people go into self-improvement, right? They're afraid of rejection. They're afraid they're not good enough. They want to get better. Why do you want to get better? You think you're not good enough. That's basically it, right? But just make sure that you're doing it for the right reason, and you're not trying to get better so that you never have to feel the pain again. So in my opinion, real self-improvement looks like this, right? Accepting looking stupid. Don't care if you look stupid. If you look like a beginner, who cares? So many people are afraid, raise their hand in a classroom and ask a question because they don't want anybody to know that they don't know the answer. We're so afraid to not know things that we don't even ask. So the very first thing you can do, not worry what people think. If people think you're stupid, if people think, oh, who's that guy to... doesn't fucking matter. The only people who will judge you for that kind of thing are the people who will never go anywhere in life. You have to feel the fear and do stuff anyway. This is a big one for me. I've tried to inoculate myself against fear, read all these books about fear, understand fear, get to the point where oh, maybe that'll make it go away. No, that does not actually, believe it or not, the fear still exists. It doesn't go away. I think that's a bird, but it might be a frog. I think it's a frog. I'm like half a mile from water, so I don't know why there's a frog up here. What you have to do is embrace the situations you're afraid of, accept the feeling of fear, and only then can you actually conquer it, because then you will have a reference experience for yourself. You will have gone into the fire and felt that you can take the heat and been like, oh, this is what I was resisting. This is what I was afraid of. I can do it. But until you do that, until you go through that process, you're only procrastinating, you're holding yourself back because you're afraid of feeling the fear. The more we resist our own emotional states, the more we get stuck, and the more we get stuck in that loop of procrastination. Robert Greene has this great line where he writes about how we should get 90% ready and then do the thing. But he says, prepare extensively, but always start before you think you're ready so you can rise to the occasion. Because if we wait until we think we are ready, we will never start. That, in my opinion, is the dark side of self-improvement. Waiting forever to start because you think, you know what, I just need to improve a little bit more. I just need to get a little bit better and then I'll be ready. I just need to learn one more thing and then I will be immune to all this stuff I'm afraid of feeling. But it never happens. It doesn't work like that. That's not how we work. It's just a way for us to procrastinate ever taking action, for us to procrastinate ever starting, and we still get this little payoff of feeling like we're getting better. It's not like it's completely useless, but it needs to be paired with appropriate action. We need to try things and learn from them and consistently revise our approach rather than trying to devise this ultimate impenetrable plan, then going into battle. Because as we all know, what is it? They say all plans are great until you come into contact with the enemy. We need to come into contact with the enemy. We need to go out into the world and deal with actual situations and actual people and then reflect on ourselves at the same time. That is big S self-improvement, releasing our emotional patterns, working on why we feel triggered in certain scenarios, becoming more objective, being able to see reality as it is, being able to see through this veil of all of our past fears and our programming from childhood and our deep-held terror about abandonment. Once we can see through that in experience, not just in understanding, but in living it in the world, that is when we can reach true improvement. But as long as it remains theoretical, as long as it remains, you know what, I need to learn one more thing and then I'll start. I need to just do a little bit more and then I'll be ready. Then you are cheating yourself. You need to be doing the things to improve while you're doing the things themselves. You cannot stay forever in the cycle of learning. You're only cheating yourself. That's the problem. Thanks for watching.